Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to TechWake TV. I wanted to do a 3-minute video tonight and just talk to you guys about something that I've come across. My daughter recently moved out into a new place and she did not have a computer. She only has a laptop. So I was working the other day and one of the customers came out when I was working and said, "Hey man, I've got this old computer here if you want it, or one of your guys wants it." I said, "Yeah, which one is it?" And she said, "It's a 2010 like Mac and it's locked with a password and we don't know what it is. We can't get it to work." So I was like, "Well, I'll take it and see what I can do with it." So I brought it home and I got to looking at it, looked at the specs. They were pretty puny. It's a Core i3, so it's like a dual core, 4 threads, or I don't even know. It's like insignificant at this point because it's so bad that it's slow. So it had a regular spinning conventional hard disk drive, 7,200 RPM, 500 gig. That's not horrible, but it's not great. And it only had 4 gigs of RAM. So at first I was thinking, yeah, I'll probably just get this thing up and running and see if one of my workers wants it. But it's so bad that it really was only useful for surfing the internet. And so I started to play around with it. I quickly figured out how to get the password unlock taken care of. And I got to thinking about some of the uses that I could have for it. And I thought, well, maybe my daughter would want to use it as like a web surfing machine, maybe some light photo editing or storage, or I don't know, something. So I started looking at it and I found myself on a site called OWC, Other World Computing, and they specialize in Mac upgrades. So I started looking into the 2010 to see what was available for it, and they had 2 SSD drive selections that you could choose from. One was a 600 megabit max throughput, and one was a 300 megabit. And I chose the 300 because the 2010 Mac was only a SATA 2, which had a max throughput of 300. So that seemed to be better matched and it was cheaper. And I took the RAM from 4 to 16 gigs. So the total upgrade package was about $200. And there was some labor involved. I had to pull apart the computer, which is actually pretty easy for 2010 because unlike some of the modern PCs where the glass is glued on, the glass for these older ones are magnetically held in place, so they're easy to get off. I would say it's a skill level of medium to medium high to make these changes, but it's not impossible and it's not that hard. So if you have fairly good confidence and pretty good with your fingers and hands, it's very doable. So I took this thing apart. I put a 1 terabyte SSD drive in it. I put 16 gigs of RAM in it. Put it all back together, blew all the dust out of it, and I just downloaded iMovie, and I wanted to show you guys that I can actually edit a movie on this iMovie machine, and this was not too bad. I mean, it was pretty smooth. I did a 1080p file at 60 frames, and then I converted the movie to a 30p movie, and it moved through the timeline just fine. It opens and closes iMovie just fine. It's totally doable. The only thing you have to be careful of is you don't want to buy equipment that's going to make the hardware that you need to edit this type of stuff so intense that you have to buy new stuff. So you have to limit your tools. So I think something like a Canon SL2 or an SL3 with an MP4 format, AAC audio, or some other type of MP4 format with some kind of lower grade audio. Those file formats are butter on this thing. It works really good. You have to remember, in 2010, which wasn't that long ago, it was 10 years ago, you could walk into a Mac store, they had these Macs on the shelf, and they couldn't have been that horrible, right? Because people bought them, and they were pretty snappy and pretty fast, even for that time frame. So things have improved vastly, and as far as scrubbing on timelines and working on things and editing, of course, yeah, everything's better now. But there was a time in 2010 when these were pretty decent machines. Now, this is probably even the lower left-end version of the machine that was available for this in that time frame. It's still not horrible, and I got it for free. And I spent $200 and I made it very, very usable. So I think this is something my daughter would be able to use in lieu of her laptop. Instead of having to get cables and plug in and do all this stuff, she could just run over to her desk, sit down and pull up a couple apps, do some things, and be very efficient, and could be a little workhorse. It has a little side DVD slot. It has the SD card reader on the side. It has FireWire ports. Unfortunately, it's only USB 2.0, so everything's kind of slow. So the channels are not very good as far as like the throughput and the data channels on this thing. But you know, it definitely works. And if you guys are looking for inexpensive options, you don't have to shoot for the moon. You could definitely end up with something that's very usable. Use a little bit lighter editing software. Use a little bit lighter camera gear that it requires lower file sizes and file types, and just kind of make it work. So it's not impossible to get a good product out of something that's old and used and refurbished. So just want to leave you with that thought. I'll get more into exactly what I did with this computer and how it worked out and show you more about it later. But I just wanted to touch base tonight and let you know it was a success and it works great. And I'll talk to you soon. Later.